Thousands of New Zealanders are flocking to Gallipoli to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Anzac forces landing on the peninsula during World War I. The tales of their assault are legendary, and those who died will be remembered around the world this weekend. But what about Turkey? How are they planning to commemorate the day? Mike McRoberts, as I've said, is in Turkey and joins me now. Good to have you with us, Mike. So the locals, what is the mood with the locals in the build-up to this 100th anniversary?
Well, so far, the most people that we've seen on the peninsula have been locals, have been Turkish, and they've come here in their thousands and thousands of busloads, turning up to take a look at some of the burial sites, some of the battlefields, and also the 57th Regiment Memorial, which is a place that we visited today, which is a memorial for the 57th Infantry Regiment, which was completely wiped out when they took on the Anzacs on the first day in 1915. On the 25th of April. Now, they were, of course, the regiment that was told infamously or famously by Kemal to not to attack the Anzacs, but to die. And they had to do that, of course, to make sure that the reinforcements got there in time to take on the Anzacs. So we went there today, and look. The Turkish people are amazing. They really do believe in this sacrifice, and they really do say that while we talk about the birth of our nation, it was the birth of the modern Turkey as well. And of course, Kemal Atatürk went on to lead Turkey into independence and become their president.
I was reading about a display at the Turkish Military Museum, and of course, for Turkey, we have to remember. This was a huge success, even although they lost a colossal number of lives. It was ultimately a huge success for them, and it was a success that they hadn't had militarily for hundreds and hundreds of years. So they remember it to a degree as a huge victory.
Yeah, they talk about this lack of confidence that they had going into this Gallipoli campaign, and then, of course, on the other end, the amazing confidence they got out of it. But you're right, they suffered horrendous casualties. 250,000 were killed in the Gallipoli campaign. And that actually meant that they ran out of men. They ended up conscripting or recruiting boys who were just aged 15. And we met some young boys, 15-year-olds, who had been pulled together to commemorate that aspect of the Gallipoli campaign today. Then later on, in their war for independence, what they did was, instead of saying an age, they said if you're over 40 kilos, you could fight. And so, it's pretty amazing stuff, isn't it, when you think of the age and the weight and what was, a soldier back then.
Mike, for people that have been to Gallipoli on Anzac Day, for people that have been there for commemorations in the past, how much bigger is it going to be this year, the 100th? Well, this is my first time to Gallipoli, so it's very hard for me to put a handle on that. But certainly, when you look at the tiny spaces that these memorial sites take in, we've got Lone Pine for the Australians, Anzac Cove, of course, for the joint dawn service, and then Chunuk Bair for the New Zealand service. The small spaces, and they've got great big grandstands around them, big screens, that kind of thing. We'll have, I think, 10,000 at the dawn service, so 8,000 Australians, 2,000 Kiwis, and then you've got the dignitaries on top of that. It's going to be jam-packed, and on top of that, you've got other people in cruise ships floating by. You've got other buses that are outside the area but still want to be part of it. They say something like 100,000 people will be on the peninsula over the next couple of days. Those numbers are extraordinary. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to catch you back a little bit later in the week. That's Mike McRoberts in Gallipoli. And as Mike said, 100,000 people are expected to visit the peninsula this weekend. You've been, Jim. That is a phenomenal number of people.
Yeah, it's a huge number of people. And listening to Mike talk about the Turks, there is a beautiful monument at Anzac Cove, which starts with something like, to the mothers of the Johnnies, rest easy, your sons lie in friendly arms. It's just beautiful when you read it. And it's a very moving place to go to as a Kiwi.
Now, you didn't go during a commemoration, did you? You
just went backpacking with my wife here. And it was great.
It's a lazy person's thing to do, to go
go on a cruise ship. This is just extraordinary. I mean, that's probably how I would do it, to be honest, if I went. But the upside of that, not to put too fine a point on it, of course, is you have access to facilities. Because one of the issues over the weekend, and I've heard people that have been to Gallipoli before for the commemorations, is obviously you've got a huge number of people in a small place. It's Portaloo-tastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty rustic there, and that's part of the magic of it, really.
Yeah.